Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's February 14th, Valentine's Day. Had a little rain this morning, not much. And we're going to say it's tater time. This year we're going to do our taters a little bit easier. We got our submittal buster so we could plow our furrows, put our potatoes in there. And now we've got our furrows on a few of the rows. We got our potatoes here. If you look back at the video a while back, these here are the Yukon Gold. These are Kennebecks, and these here are my Pontiac Reds, and these Pontiac Reds are trying to go crazy. Now when you see this, you'll know why I put these in these milk crates. You can see some of them's even coming out the side. Well, if I had these in bags and they started chitting like this or green sprouting, I would break off most of these sprouts. So, but anyway, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna put a little chicken litter down in this row, rake a little dirt on it, and then I'm gonna cut these potatoes and I'll bring you along. And while Mama's putting that fertilizer down, I'm going to start cutting potatoes. All right, I've got a few of them cut, and I'm going to cut some more. Now, there's not exactly rocket science to this, but you want at least 2 eyes on here, and there's no need in planting whole potatoes. Any potato grower, well, I say any, the ones that I've watched talk about not planting whole potatoes. You get more potatoes per pound on harvest if you cut your potatoes first. Now, in a lot of them, they do them just like this. They put them in the ground just as soon as they cut them. You want at least 2 eyes. Now, they might not all be as well formed. You can see there's 3 there. Some of these might have good eyes on one side that's really protruding, and you can see these others are starting to green sprout. So they're ready to go. So you just cut it up about, usually they say about half the size of an egg. Now a lot of mine might be bigger, depends on how quick their eyes are sprouting on them, but it's basically like that. Now a lot of times I might put one of these whole like this, but what happens when you put whole potatoes in, all these eyes that's on here, and they sprout and they come up with a plant, and then all the potatoes are crowded, so they're all fighting for nutrients. You normally don't have as big of potatoes, and you don't have as so you don't have as many pounds. You might have a lot of small potatoes, but if you're looking for some bigger ones for eating, you need to cut your potatoes. Now this got a spot on it here. I don't know how bad it is, don't look bad, but I'm gonna cut it off. If you have any spots that looks like they're rotten already, we'll get rid of them, because they're just going to create a problem, and it might not come up. But now we'll get these in the ground. Okay, she's pulling a little bit of dirt over the fertilizer just so it's not going to touch them, and I'm coming back down here and I'm dropping my potatoes about every 8 to 12 inches. Now some of them's upside down because I'm just throwing them in. We'll flip those over. You want to make sure your eyes are heading up, that way they'll come up that much quicker. But anyway, I'm going to finish this up. While I'm talking about potatoes, one thing to know, and I do want to say that the way these Pontiac Reds, or the red Pontiacs, whichever one you want to call them, with the long green sprouts on them, which aren't actually green, but if you want to say chits, that's fine too, but that's more of a UK thing. Potato growers in the US say green sprouting. But anyway, what I want to say is you have 2 types of potatoes. You have a determinate and an indeterminate. Now all the varieties that I'm planting here in this garden are determinants, and what that means is they put potatoes on it, one layer, and it's the layer that they put it on is just above where it sprouts out of the potato that you put in the ground, so it'll put some out. Now, indeterminates, they keep putting on potatoes the more dirt that you pile. That's more of your main crops. And the other thing that I want to say that's important, you get a lot of bad advice. People hear something and they tend to repeat it. Now, just like it rained yesterday, I planted part of these yesterday, the first one, and then it got late, and it's chance of rain today. But they say, oh, don't plant your potatoes when it's going to be wet like that because they're going to rot in the ground. Well, if your potatoes are green sprouting, that means they're ready to grow. They broke dormancy and they're ready to grow. Now, if they haven't started and you put them in the ground, they're going to have to sit there a while before they break dormancy. And that's why we always say chit or green sprout your potatoes ahead of time. And normally you want to put them in or not sprout them as much as this, but when you get potatoes, sometimes that's what you end up with over the period of time, because I'm buying them by a sack. I'm not just buying 5 or 10 pounds. But anyway, if you have soggy ground, saturated ground, or something like that, you definitely don't want to put your potatoes in right away. Like if you have a heavy clay, stuff like that, you don't want it to be really wet. But potatoes do need some moisture. Now, mine is a sandy loam, so when I plant these and they're ready to grow because they broke dormancy, they're going to need some moisture. And even if I get a heavy rain, unless you're in a spot where your ground holds water, well, don't worry about it. Go ahead and plant those potatoes and get them to come up. And you'll see later on, if you subscribe and follow, if you're not a subscriber, you'll see just how well these do. I've never had a problem. I cut these and put them directly in the ground. That's the way most of your commercial growers plant theirs. They don't cut them all and wait, and they just put them directly in. But when they put them in, they don't put in dormant potatoes where the eyes haven't started sprouting yet. So understand that. And here are my pitiful French fingerling seed potatoes. And these were from the crop last year. I ordered these French fingerling seed potatoes, not these ones, but the ones that I planted. And like a lot of seed potato companies, they ship like at a time that's good for the north and not the south. So these come in mid-April or something, put them in the ground, and of course the fingerlings, I think they like about 120 days, and you can't get that in the Texas heat. And this is one reason why I say it's important to go ahead and get your potatoes in the ground if you're in zone 8 or higher, because that summer heat, most of the varieties I grow take anywhere from say 75 to 120 days. And when you plant in the middle of February, you can kind of beat most of the heat. But what happens is if you plant them late, the heat gets them, and then they start getting stressed, and then it makes them more susceptible to blight. And then of course the plants start failing. So that's one thing that's going to be real important. Now these, I'm probably going to put these in little containers to start them to growing, and then I'm going to plant them. That way they've got a better chance. I did want to start saving me some seed potatoes, but normally when I save seed potatoes, I have to plant a second crop so the potatoes are still viable for the next year, because you can see, and these were small, but you can see how they've been growing for quite a while. But by the time I harvested them, I couldn't really get another crop, not have them out without some special precautions, maybe in the greenhouse or something. But anyway, I hope you find this video helpful as far as whenever it comes to planting your potatoes. And of course, if you want to follow along, see how mine does, hit that subscribe button and give it a big thumbs up. And as always, enjoy your garden.